Oh, we've been waiting for it for so long. Opening weekend has come and gone, and here we are for the first in-season ABCA Terraflex Top 25 poll. And of course, we are six rotations. He's Mick Haley. I'm Daniel Gillman. So happy to be with you, and as always, very happy for our sponsor in SNA Sports. Better equipment for a better game. And Mick, 4 top 10 teams go down, including your Longhorns. It was a weekend from the get-go, right in the beginning moments of Friday. Number 12 Marquette falls to 24th Western Kentucky. It just kept going. There weren't really upsets as much as, well, maybe the rankings were a little bit wrong in the pre-conference play and the preseason rankings. But Mick, I want to know, how much volleyball did you take in this weekend, and what were your first reactions?
Well, I had a lot of different reactions. I watched maybe 16, 18 matches at least, or portions of them, and I tried to see why people were having difficulty or why they were doing well. I came up with some pretty good answers. So as we go through, I'll be glad to throw in my comments on each of the teams.
All right, well, we don't want to delay too long. I want to bring it to you right now. So here are the top 5 teams from the coaches, the AVCA Terraflex Top 25 poll. We're going to start with the top 5 teams here. And Mick, it's all red. Wisconsin, Stanford, Louisville, Nebraska, Minnesota. Texas falls far from grace, according to the coaches, all the way from number 1 and grabbing so many first place votes, not even in the top 5 anymore, as Wisconsin stands tall in the Minnesota tournament with Baylor and TCU. Louisville and Stanford only dropped 1 set in their opening weekends. I want to get your take on Texas, but maybe we wait until we talk about them after the top 5 here. What's your take on where these 5 are rotated and located?
Well, I think Wisconsin and Stanford are okay. I think the coaches are pretty close on that, and you know, Louisville seems to be a sweetheart team with the coaches, so they really didn't prove a lot other than De Beer is still De Beer. And
55 kills and
a
hitting percentage for Anna De Beer. Yeah, sweep over in Washington State. Pretty good.
And Nebraska's playing it safe. They didn't play anybody, so I thought they gave them a little bit too much credit for where they are. So, but I liked Minnesota. I think the 2 left sides are big time, and they're okay everywhere else. And so I think we'll see how that works out for them with the new coach and everything. But Keegan's just got to be hating these rankings being so high so quick. He's got a lot on his plate there.
So let's go. Let me go one at a time. Wisconsin beat Baylor in 4 on Big Ten Network to get our season started. A sweep over TCU behind Devin Robinson's 15 kills. A good test this week, though. I love when Kelly Sheffield goes on the road against a team that's good but not marquee. And so that's what we're going to see this week. Wisconsin's going to head to Arkansas twice, a team in the top 25. But Devin Robinson, Carter Booth, everyone looked, status quo for a team that was expected to bring so much horsepower back. And then we go to Stanford. Now, Stanford had a wild first match against Northern Colorado. It was a sweep, but the third set, Mick, was 32-30 in favor of the Cardinal. Kendall Kipp didn't play in that first match. They then beat Colorado State behind Kipp in a 4-set effort in their 2 matches. But Elia Rubin looked really good, 28 kills from Coach Hambley's bunch. Then we moved down to Louisville. Louisville swept Troy and Washington State. They beat Wright State in 4, and Wright State, a talented team in the Horizon League, always finds their way in the tournament. They took Louisville to the bitter end, 26-24 in the 4th set, nearly forced a 5th against the Cardinals. But as you mentioned, we're really going to get a good test about them in conference play. Now we talk Nebraska. Got to give a little credit to them. They didn't drop a set, Mick. They played Utah State, Lipscomb, and SMU, and started 3 freshmen, including the setter Bergen Riley. Did you watch any Husker play?
No, I did not, but I did notice the setter situation. And one of the things I've looked at across the board is who's setting. And I'd be glad to comment on that. But that's why I think the jury's out on Nebraska. Beeson, of course, is who I want to see and how she affects the Nebraska team. One of the things we didn't mention about Wisconsin was Temi Thomas,
Yep,
and I'm not sure, how do you pronounce her last name?
Temi Thomas Ilara.
Ilara, yes. Well, she proved that she's a definite asset. In fact, they played Orzel as the libero the first night. I don't know if you're aware of that. Then they came back and hit her left side the second night. So he's playing around right now. He's trying to keep everybody happy and trying to figure out where to put everybody. So those two teams, Wisconsin, Nebraska, are interesting. I think Stanford is kind of Stanford. They just start slow, and then they know Minnesota's coming up. So I think they kind of overlooked the tournament this weekend a little bit and are moving on. But one of the things that I knew was going to happen, and I saw, was not Stanford, but who they played. Anybody that plays Colorado State this year, watch out for the setter Emory Herman, Georgetown, Texas kid. I was in Croatia coaching a team this summer, and she coached the All-Stars from her conference against my team, and she literally beat us herself. She is one of the best setters in the country, and I don't know how she's been overlooked, but give her a look if you like to watch setters.
I love it. And you mentioned Stanford. They're going to have a matchup midweek on Tuesday against Florida, and then Sunday at Texas. So it's going to be a great week to learn a lot about Stanford. We will get to our matches to watch at the end, but we'll sprinkle them through. Of course, the big one on Thursday, Mick, Nebraska, Omaha, Memorial Stadium, 8 o'clock, BTN, expecting over 92,000, which would break the record for the highest attended women's sporting event in the world. College, professional, little league, any level. It was Real Madrid against Barcelona last year. And, talking to John Cook at the Big Ten Media Days, he kind of hinted, I think this is going to break it. I think we're going to get over 92K. So that'll be a fun one. A team in Omaha that, of course, really took it to Nebraska last season. But I want to keep rolling through the Huskers. They made these changes throughout the weekend. They all, similarly to Sheffield, Cook had a lot of switches, didn't start Batenhorst and Jackson till game 2, barely used Maddie Kubik. I don't even think she had a kill the entire weekend. And Harper Murray stood tall as the MVP of the tournament. And talking about MVP of tournaments, we're going to get to Minnesota here. They beat TCU in 4. They swept Baylor. And how about the effort from McKenna Wooker, right? 30 kills and a .464 hitting percentage in 2 matches. Schaffmaster did what she needed to do. She's gotten a lot of hate in social media in the offseason. Is she going to be good enough to deal with these hitters in Landfair and Wooker? Awolai, 16 blocks, but then Kylie Murr, right? We had her on the show. We love Kylie Murr. She is one of the best personalities in the sport. And all she did was step up with 40 digs in the 2 matches for Minnesota. So I'm not gonna hold my punches here. I think that these 5 are well ranked. I think for the first time in a while, we have a week 1 ranking without that much controversy. Now, yes, maybe you could throw Texas in the 5 spot and bump down Minnesota, but at the end of the day, you've got to punish someone for a loss, and it's not the end of the world pushing you from 1 to the late single digits. So let's go ahead now. Let's look at the 6 through 15. That's how we're going to break things down this season. We're going to go 1 through 5, 6 through 15, or 1 through 15, and then open it up to the entire poll. And so here we see Texas at 7. Yes, maybe they could bump a little bit above Oregon, but man, the Ducks looked really, really good. I don't know if you caught any of that Hawaii tournament out in Honolulu, but Oregon swept University of San Diego. Was not a great weekend for the Toreros and Coach Petrie. They swept Northwestern and they swept Hawaii. It was a demolishing for the Ducks. I mean, there were only 4 sets total where they allowed over 20 points and none more than 22. So there were no 25, 23 sets in the entire weekend for Oregon. So that's got a little bit of a vote of confidence in the 6th spot.
Well, not only that, Mimi Collier is averaging over 6 kills per set. I mean, think about that, 6 kills per set. And Gabby Gonzalez can barely get a ball. She had 11 and a half kills against Hawaii, 6 kills against Northwestern, and 8 going 5 kills against San Diego. But there's two left side hitters that can hold their own, with Collier looking at being considered player of the year already, the way she's come out of the blocks.
I love it. Give me all your hot takes. Comment who you think should already be player of the year, right? Anna DeVere had 45 kills. Mimi Collier had 48 kills in just 9 sets. It was a remarkable performance from Oregon there, but it's time now. I know you guys have been waiting for it. I've got to throw it to you, Mick. It's almost like the college football weekends when Notre Dame would lose and everybody would look over to oh man, what was his name? Not Lee Corso, but the analyst on ESPN that loved Notre Dame, right? It's time. It's time for you to bask in it, Mick. Texas at Long Beach State. Walk me through it. Did you watch most of it? I have to be honest, I was on a broadcast. I was doing Texas Tech, so I wasn't able to watch too much of it, but I caught the final few points. And of course, the no Asia O'Neal aspect is going to be big, but the floor is yours, Mick.
Well, I think they've been a little harsh on Texas. On the other hand, I see the Achilles heel. And I think when O'Neal comes in, the middle moves to the right side, and then they're more in system. But they were predominantly left side hitting team against Long Beach, and Long Beach careered. So that's happened several times in several matches this first weekend. Teams that are not in the top 25 have careered against whoever they got loaded up against. And that's really good. That's good for them and good for everybody. But you see what happens after they celebrate too long, and then they get beat right away by somebody else. Texas' problem, though, is how quickly they can get the freshman setter to not set the ball, but to set in the sweet spots for the hitters. And the in-system play was very difficult for Texas. I think also they're going to have trouble if they're going to take one of their left sides out back row, especially Winnes, because Winnes needs rhythm if she's going to play left side. So she needs touches. And I know she doesn't pass as well as they'd like to have her pass, but she and Skinner in there together are probably liabilities. If I were going to take one out, I'd probably take Skinner out. Just simply because I think she's a little stiffer than Winnes. But it'll be interesting to see how they solve this. And they've got a couple of real good matches coming up. So I think the coaching staff will try to do some different things. And I think they're a solid top 7 team without question. I probably think they've got enough talent to be a top 4 team. But the setting will be the critical thing. The quicker that comes along, the more they will challenge those other teams.
So Ella Swindle, the Missouri Gatorade Player of the Year, freshman setter, you mentioned 32 assists in that match. But Madison Skinner just didn't quite have the magic touch in that 4th set, right? She had finished with 16 kills, 8 errors. And yes, Texas is going to turn around. It's almost better, right, as a coach to have the immediate turnaround. You're watching this hopefully on Tuesday when we post it, because Texas is going to play tonight in Minneapolis in a matchup of 5 and 7. So a chance to immediately bounce back. Then you get Stanford on Sunday in Gregory. So if you're worried about Texas, you don't really have to worry for too long without action. At least you get to watch them play immediately. They turned around, swept LMU, same LMU team that swept Long Beach State. There's a reason why Long Beach State's not sitting here in the top 15. We'll have to wait. I'll tease it a little bit more to see if they're in the top 25. But it's going to be such a fun night, right?
The thing that I watched is, Skinner has played on 2 national championship teams now, but she's never been the go-to. She's always been the support. And of course, when the support gets hot, that just makes you that much tougher to deal with. Now she has to be the go-to. Texas needs her to replace Livingston and be the go-to. And this is going to be stressful for Skinner because she hasn't had to assume this role yet. So in her development for her, this is a great situation for her to be in. But Texas is going to have to live through her learning to show up every night, get her five kills per set, and reduce the errors and get all the big swings at the end of the match. So let's watch that one and see how the development goes there.
Sticking with the Big 12, the newest addition in the Big 12. In fact, there are 2 of them here in the teens, or the 6 through 15 spot. First, we start with Houston. Houston, in the best ranking they've ever been, took down USC in 4 sets at home. Newest member from Texas Tech and Kenna Sauer, she had a big match. So Houston, and then BYU. BYU beat Pittsburgh in 4 sets out in Montana. They jumped from 17 down to 8 here, or to 9 here. So for BYU and for Houston, 9 and 13, 2 teams that you never know, could certainly put up a run in the Big 12 now that Texas is looking a little bit more human. BYU, led by their senior and Aaron Livingston, they'll take on LMU on Wednesday. No real test for BYU up until 2 weeks from now when they'll take on Washington State. So those are a couple teams to keep an eye on as well. Georgia Tech sits here with Florida. Both of them played in Tampa. I watched that weekend. It was a really fun tournament. The preview for the Final Four, the road to Tampa. Georgia Tech beat Penn State, as did Florida, both in 4 sets. And then the Gators escaped their rivals in USF in 5. And I don't know. I think Georgia Tech may be a team that got a little bit of disrespect last year. They lost so many of their pieces. They lost the superstars, right, in Brambilla and Bergman. And now, all of a sudden, they're gelling. All 4 of these teams I just mentioned really had strong weekends. Houston, BYU, Florida, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they're not one-person teams. They're led by 4 people in double figures every night if they're going to win, and they move the ball around. They give a lot of swings to 4 people, and so I think you have to watch out for that. On a bad night, they're going to get beat, but on a good night, they're going to give the best teams in the country fits.
And then a couple other teams. Ohio State avoided an upset bid against Bowling Green, turned around to sweep a pretty solid East Tennessee State team. Kentucky, they had a tough weekend, upset by, you mentioned, Colorado State in 4 sets. But Kentucky's going to have a very tough road, which is a good thing when you lose early, right? The Wildcats will bounce back quickly and take on Pittsburgh on Sunday on ACC Network. So both of those teams sitting here in the 10 through 15 spot, and a chance for them to quickly get a marquee win under their belt. Ohio State will take on Georgia Tech twice this weekend. I guess we're doing a little bit of merging our matches to watch with the poll here, because I want to talk about the 16 through 25 now. And the first thing I got to talk about, where's the love for Long Beach State? It's the first weekend of the season, Mick. Long Beach State is not ranked in the top 25. How does that happen? How do you explain these coaches and their ignorance? If you beat Texas, I don't care about anything else. The preseason doesn't matter at all. The non-conference is everything right now. The off season, who cares? You just beat the number 1 team. You've got to give them respect and rank them.
Yeah, I don't know. That means that Duke has to be ranked. That means a number of people have to be ranked.
Duke didn't beat the number 1 team and defending champ, did they?
Well, maybe the defending champs. I'm not sure they were the number 1 team. They were the number 1 ranked team. And that's fair. That's fair, I think. But I think
I don't know, Mick. You look at this poll right now. Purdue was ranked in the top 25. They had 2 losses. They lost to Creighton and then upset by Loyola. Teams like Hawaii, who had very strong weekends, they're sitting on the outside looking in. I think this is a good example of how some of these coaches just don't care at all, barely look, mail it in, pick some teams that they know are good in spirit. But I'll get off my high horse here. Let's talk about a couple of the newcomers.
Well, let's be, if we're going to be on the coaches, I think they missed the boat on one team for sure, and that's Creighton. I have not been a Creighton fan, but I watched Creighton play, and I'm telling you, they've got arms. They've got some of the best defense they've ever had, and if they improve in the middle, they're a team that you're going to have to deal with. Both of those left sides, Martin and Sis, just hit the cover off of the ball. Martin may even be playing better than Sis right now, because she took the big swings and she was successful in all 3 matches. So I think Creighton is probably a top 12 team. If you want to know the truth, I think putting them at 20. I
agree. I mean, they lost to Duke in 5, but it's similar to the situation we see a lot of these teams in this area of the poll. Western Kentucky, They beat Marquette on opening day and yet sit lower than them just because they turned around and lost to Dayton, even though Marquette also had an escape trap against Drake. Marquette beat them in 5. There are certainly some troubling set of circumstances here. A team that we liked in Washington State bumps up from 21 to 17. How about the two new teams in this top 25? Kansas and Tennessee both have undefeated weekends. They bump out San Diego and USC. And I'm still very confused by Purdue at 25 here. Purdue led 12-7 in the 5th set over Loyola, blew the lead, blew the match, and was swept by Creighton. That's just not quite deserving of a top 25 seed after Hawaii had such a strong weekend and finished it with a win over Northwestern. And they beat San Diego. I don't know. I would have given it to Hawaii.
I think Purdue's going to be all right, and I'll tell you why. Right now, they are struggling in the middle. People are absolutely hitting the ball through the middle blocker's hands, around the middle blocker, and he's got to get that fixed. But he's got arms out there on the left side. He's got okay defense, not as good as it has been in the past, but they work on that all season. So I think Purdue will be
I think
okay.
They'll be fine too.
Yeah.
I just don't think they should be ranked right now. And I think you got to give a little bit of love to the Big West Conference, who had some huge wins and yet sit outside the top 25 here. But let's move on over to the SEC. Arkansas sweeps Michigan State and Tulsa. They've got a great 2 matches lined up with Wisconsin to separate themselves. LSU and UCLA had an awesome weekend. LSU beat UCLA in 5 in Baton Rouge. UCLA comes back the next day, spanks them in the 5th set, 15-6. That was a lot of fun. And then Tennessee sitting here just on the outside of the top 25. They worked their way in, and they'll face University of San Diego on the road Thursday night, late night on ESPN+. That'll be a lot of fun to kind of see if the Toreros can bounce back in front of their home crowd at the Jenny Craig Pavilion, or if the Volunteers have a little bit of that pre-conference magic like we saw last year from them. But I want to talk a little bit about the Pac-12, Mick. This is kind of the last year of the Pac-12 really existing. Just on Friday, the Pac-12 went 6-9 with losses to UTEP, Utah Valley, UC Davis, Kennesaw State, and Montana State. Yuck.
Well, they're in trouble. There's no question. And there's only really 3 teams, with UCLA is going to be good by the end of the season. I watched both those matches with LSU, and he is so patient with those kids that they will get better. In fact, like you said, by the 5th set of the second night, they were swinging with confidence, and they were real together. Their talent is a little bit down, but they'll get that up. So that will be that's my vote for number 4. But I think you've got Stanford and Oregon. Oregon's improved themselves. Stanford is the same, and hopefully improved from being together this long. And Washington State, in my opinion, is probably the 3rd best team. Yeah. So
what's
they don't
Stanford
have anybody else. Yeah,
what's
nobody
Stanford
else.
Next year, they're just going to be playing in a 14 conference. Like, what do you do if you're Stanford?
Well, I think I'm a little disappointed that Stanford doesn't stand up, take charge of that conference, rally everybody around them, rally teams that they want in there, instead of being followers or saying, well, we're just worried about ourselves. I think Stanford has the pedigree that they could stand up and lead. I'm waiting to see some of that.
This may get me in a little bit of trouble, but in my 3 years of living in California, Mick, the one thing I learned is there is not one athletic department on the West Coast, or I guess I'll stick to just California. There's not one athletic department in California that is an aggressor. Everybody just they enjoy hanging around or going to the beach, or just sports just don't take a front seat. And it's like Stanford, it should have been they should have been the forefather of this. They should have taken it. It should have been Stanford, and it should have been, they could have grabbed, for example, USD, or they could have grabbed a couple teams like Hawaii and grabbed them together, or like you said, just try to not rally the Pac-12 troops, but they could have gotten some other teams like San Diego State maybe, or Fresno State, or there just hasn't been any movement at all. But I think that's a football problem. And unfortunately, people just don't care. These athletic departments just don't care about the women's college volleyball side of things. Like we're going to see next year when UCLA flies to Rutgers on a Sunday night and then has to come back after playing Maryland or Penn State. And it's just all for football. So a couple other things on the West Coast. I was a little surprised. I really enjoyed Pepperdine last year and thought that they were going to have a good start to the year. No, they got swept by Texas A&M and Kansas. That was a tough start for the Waves out in California. And Mick, as we look at the rest of this top 25 here, I'm not really too attracted by the Marquette Creighton rivalry. Like you mentioned, I think Creighton, it's surprising.
I think they moved ahead.
I think it's going to be Creighton's conference.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would tell you one thing about Pepperdine. They caught two teams that are out to prove something. Jamie Morrison, the new head coach at A&M, has got it cooking over there. And Ray Richard at Kansas is tired of the last 2 years, and he's been building up to get back after wanting to win that Big 12 championship. And he's got his work cut out for him this year, but he's got the athletes. So I think Pepperdine got hammered by two teams looking to move themselves quickly, and maybe they weren't ready for that. But I've been watching what they've been doing, and they have not been sleeping on their laurels. They've been out, been foot soldiers in the recruiting and the training. So watch out for those two.
And so here are the teams that were just on the outside looking in. Hawaii was just 15 total points adjusted behind Purdue. So Hawaii's 26, and then a long list of teams and a deep separation between 26 and 27. Colorado State, San Diego, Auburn, Florida State, Miami. Auburn and Florida State is an interesting one, Mick, because the two undefeated teams, SEC, ACC, are going to match up on Sunday. And I just want to run through the matches again for those of you that are just tuning in at the very end, right? So we've got Tuesday night, Texas, Minnesota, 8 o'clock. And this is all Eastern time zone. Florida, Stanford, 9 o'clock. Thursday, Nebraska, Omaha, bang, 8 o'clock, BTN in a football stadium. Hopefully the weather will be good. It won't be too humid. It won't be too cold. Fingers crossed. Then you've got Wisconsin, Arkansas, ESPNU, Thursday at 8. You need 2 TVs. Friday at night on ESPN+. Then you've got Tennessee and USD, Thursday late night at 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. Friday, Ohio State, Georgia Tech. They'll do it again on Saturday. Purdue at Marquette, Western Kentucky at Penn State. Those are some really fun ones in the Midwest.
Yeah. And you didn't say anything too much about your alma mater, Florida.
Yeah, you look good.
And I thought Penn State should have won that match going away, and it was no contest. Florida had total control.
The fourth set was pretty tight. Florida got away with some extra points. But, hey, you know me, I'm the #1 Alexa Stuckey fan. I think she is just has the it in her, the sophomore setter, all conference, all American last year. But like you said, I try to we only have so much time. Last week, I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago, Mick, people were at my neck about not talking about certain teams in the poll reveal. And 25 teams, you got to try to get a few. And
I think Ohio State's too high, to tell you the truth. They're resting on laurels of those 5 kids that left the program. I was shocked that Pedraza couldn't rally more kills out of that Penn State group. Penn State's in trouble if they can't score. They're not scoring over 12 kills per set, and they've got an experienced veteran setter running that operation. So Schumacher's got some work to do there. So some things to look for, though. I thought, and I'm still saying, watch out when Houston gets Texas twice at Houston on the rebound coming from West Virginia. Just watch out for that in a couple months, because Houston is way better than anybody knows. They didn't play half their players the first night and then played a different 5 the second night, and then there was no drop off whatsoever. They just kept coming at you. They are loaded with talent that we don't know who these kids are, because they are all want to prove themselves, and this coach gives them all a chance to do that, but he's tough on them. And I think they love playing for him. So you pay attention to Houston right now, just because they're a team on the upswing.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun Big 12 season. I have no doubts. Texas Tech went 4-0. Not too many tests, though, but they played Notre Dame. I got to do a fun one, had a good call with Salima Rockwell, and Texas Tech took care of them in 4 sets on Saturday night. Lastly, on Sunday, though, before we send you all home, Florida hosts Minnesota, noon Eastern on ESPNU. It is a awesome weekend of national TV volleyball. University of Kentucky against Pitt, noon Eastern on Sunday on ACC Network. And then ESPN2 has the Stanford at Texas one. Are you going to be there in Austin on Sunday?
Will be. Have my tickets and ready to go. 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it's 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern for the first serve. So make sure to get there.
Oh, did they change it? That's 2:30 Central, huh?
I believe so. I think that's what
Okay.
I've got on this with 3:30, but I double check me on that. And then I mentioned
I would have been late. See, I go at the last minute and I would have missed the first set.
beautiful. But I am really excited to see what happens in this Nebraska-Omaha match. So I hope everybody can lock themselves in for the August 30th. You know, it's interesting because with Nebraska, I'm not quite sure what we're going to expect in this one. Wednesday, I think I said Thursday earlier. It's Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, Omaha versus Nebraska. You know, they got Creighton next week, but it's a midweek. They play Kansas State this weekend. Then Nebraska gets Long Beach State. So it's like the tests aren't going to come from the opponents as much as from themselves. And so it'll be interesting to see which Nebraska team we see in such an emotionally charged match. So Wednesday, it'll be tomorrow if you're watching this on Tuesday. It'll be tonight if you're watching this on Wednesday. And it already happened if you're watching it afterwards. So hopefully it was a great showing, and maybe we'll get a record-breaking setup for the most watched volleyball match in person and maybe the most attended women's sporting event in the world's history. Give me a little guess on some of these matches, Mick. I want you to throw a couple guesses at me here. I do think that the Tuesday night setup is probably the best. Texas, Minnesota. I'm thinking 5 sets. I'm thinking Texas, and then Florida, Stanford. I'm thinking Stanford in 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. Minnesota might be a little bit more comfortable because of their setting situation with Texas, but Texas got something to prove, so that's going to be.
I'm thinking Minnesota takes their foot off the gas a little bit this week, kind of knowing that Texas just lost, but probably not the best idea.
Yeah, probably not. And you know, a throwaway match that I had that I don't think is a throwaway match anymore, Nebraska Creighton, actually could be a whale of a match. And I would think
it's a shame that that's not the match in the stadium, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I know, because that's arms. I mean, you're going to see arms. Beeson for Nebraska on the right side, and those 2 left sides, Martin and Sis for Creighton. I don't want to miss that one. That was a match that I was saying, oh, that's ho-hum 3-0 and we're out of there again. I don't think so this time. I think it's going to be well competed.
Beautiful. Well, we cannot wait. This is going to be a great week 2 of the 2023 fall season, all leading up to the Final Four in Tampa. Thanks so much for tuning in. He's Mick. I'm Daniel, and we are 6 Rotations.